Okay, we're live.
Oh, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Center for Spiritual Living Palm Desert. My name is Dale Olansky, and we are the Sensational Six. And I am happy to announce that effective August 1st, we are officially ministers at Center for Spiritual Living Palm Desert. So I know we're all going to proudly have our names listed as Reverend Cheryl and Reverend Gail and Reverend Lori and Reverend William and Reverend Brad and Reverend Dale. Yay for us. So long journey, but we're here and we're ready to really dig in. So we're grateful that you've supported us, and we are so grateful you're here today to be with us. Today our topic is undress the stress, and I know Lori's got a great little presentation to start us off, but before we do that, we're going to dive into prayer and then do our introduction. So I invite you to just join me if you would like to close your eyes and just relax into this wonderful, exciting moment, this moment of just recognize the oneness of all life. And I'm so grateful to open up our time together, knowing that we are ready to just dive into some juicy discussions about undressing the stress. And just knowing that our eyes and ears are wide open to new ideas that are being revealed by means of all of us. And that the questions and queries that come through are absolutely wonderful to engage everyone in these wonderful, deep discussions. And so knowing that all are centered, we're here, we're open and receptive, we're filled with love and joy, just to be a part of this wonderful experience of connecting, of listening, of expressing, of pondering different ways to see life and our ability to change conditions, because we are powerful beings, we are spirit expressing, and we have the allness of life to create a life that is happy, fulfilling, joyful, and peaceful. And so knowing that all is unfolding with grace and ease, I'm just grateful to open this up and let everything happen in its most positive, wonderful, joyful way. And so with that said, I let go, I let it be, and so it is.
And so it is.
So I guess I launch into discussion about our topic today, which is our getting to know you and getting to know us section. And today our question is, which celebrity do you most resemble? And since I'm starting off, the one that I get the most is Julia Louis-Dreyfus from Seinfeld. And during the 90s when Seinfeld was on, I used to wear my hair the exact same way that she did with that. It was kind of like this thing. And everywhere I went, it was so annoying because everywhere I went, people would say, "You look like that girl on Seinfeld." And then one time I was thinking, I wonder if people come up to her and say, "You look like that girl that lives in Santa Barbara, California." But anyways, I took it as a compliment. I think she's an amazing person. She's a beautiful and a hilarious comic. So that's my person who I most resemble. And so I'm going to pass it off. I think Gail, you're next.
Okay, thanks, Dale. So good morning. My name is Gail Morton, and I have a funny famous person story. So for years, consistently, out of the blue, totally arbitrary, at least 50 people, probably many more, mostly total strangers, have told me that I look just like Wonder Woman, not the cartoon, but the one that's played by Linda Carter. Well, I've never ever seen the likeness, but this has happened so many times that I had to take a look at this famous superhero and see what was so interesting about her. And what I found out is that she was actually created by a male psychologist back in 1941 because he believed that women could be as strong and powerful as men. So instantly, I absolutely loved that. And his wife, Elizabeth, actually helped him create her. And then the super talent that I love about Linda Carter and is that, and Wonder Woman, is that she can communicate with animals. And also it's her earrings that help her fly. So how cool is that? Cheryl, how about you? What famous person do you look like?
Well, back in the 90s and the early 2000s, when I was living in the Bay Area, I was told so many times, I even had people come up and ask me for autographs. That's how silly it was. But they'd say, "You look just like Ann Jillian." and most people don't even know who that is, but but I wore my hair like, my hair was kind of straight like that. I'm sitting in a restaurant one time, and this lady came over and said, "Oh, could I please have your autograph?" And I'm looking at her like, "What?" And she says, "I love your show." And I'm just like, "Who are you? And what are you talking about?" And then she was upset with me because I told her I wasn't Ann Jillian. She really thought I was, and that I was just trying to say, "Oh no, I'm not really her," or anything. But it just was hilarious. So many people said that to me. But what's cool about her is she went through a real journey with her health, and she actually ended up having double mastectomies because of breast cancer, and just and then she was so courageous that even though she was a Hollywood star, at first she did not have it replaced. She just said, "This is who I am now, and I'm going to live in that moment and just be that person." And so to me, that made her, as they say now, a shero to me, a hero. That she was brave enough to just buck the system and just be herself. And I love that about her. So that was me. I was Ann Jillian for a while. I think I'm too old to look like her now, but still, it was a fun thing. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Brad.
Hey there. Well, no one is my answer to the question. Years ago, and it was pre-digital era, so I just haven't found a picture I could show you all here, but I used to have long hair, and it was brown, and a big, not a big beard, it was a trim beard, but it was fairly long. And for years, everyone thought I looked like Al from Home Improvement, particularly when I'd wear a flannel shirt, Tim Allen's sidekick. It was at least a once a month probably thing for a couple of years, because a hit show was a hit at the same time. You can't prove it. That's just what it is. How about William?
Get myself unmuted there. There's actually a couple of people I've been told that I looked like my kids when I was, before this gray happened, I actually looked like The Last Samurai, Tom Cruise in The Last Samurai. And I really like that movie a lot. Every time that's one of my movies that when it's on, that's what we're watching tonight type of thing. But I liked his character in the fact that he went away from conventional thinking and allowed his own exploration and insights to lead his heart and where his loyalties lie, regardless of race or creed. And that's one of the things that I liked about his character. Very strong, very quiet, but got the job done. And I really like that. The other one is Sam Elliott. A lot of people say that I look like him as well. In fact, actually, my wife thinks that. And I like him, but I don't really have his demeanor. He is very calm. Every character he has is very calm, very knows what he's doing, and doesn't really get excited about things. And unfortunately, I haven't acquired that skill as of yet. But anyway, so those are the people that I look like, and who we have left is Lori.
So my entire life, I have never been told I look like anybody. I just haven't. So last night I sent out a group text to all my friends and I said, "Who do you think I look like?" And they came back with Colleen Dewhurst, and I was like, "Who is that?" She is a actress who's been around for many years. I'm not even sure she's still living. But my friend he said that was it. And when I saw a picture, I went, okay, I can see the resemblance. But I have never had anybody come up to me and say, "You know who you look like?" It's just never happened. So I guess I'm somewhat unique. And that's okay. And I'm going to go find out more about Colleen Dewhurst, and I'm going to look her up and maybe watch one of her movies to see if there's any more similarities there. So today we are talking about undress the stress. And what a great topic. I mean, stress in our society has almost become a badge of honor. I mean, people walk around and they're stressed out. And I think for me, what really came up, I love, first of all, the term undress the stress. And we have to thank Elizabeth for that. She said we needed to come up with more spiffy, sexy titles. So that's where the undress the stress came from. But what it got me thinking about is stress is a wonderful opportunity to look and see what I'm thinking. It can be a cue for what I'm believing in the moment. It can be a cue to drop deeper into my sense of universal knowing, but it can also be a cue to observe and ask myself some really good questions like, what is true here? And I think for most of us, stress shows up in with money, finances, time. I don't have enough of this. I don't have enough of that. Those are beliefs that run rampant through our society, not enough, and in relationships. And all of those are just wonderful, wonderful cues. So I had an interesting morning. It was, I believe, unfolded perfectly for this get together this morning. I had a bit of a plumbing issue, shall we say, and the kind that makes you go, ah, no, 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 no. I was, and there was a moment of stress, and then I started laughing because I thought, how perfect! What an opportunity for me to practice what I'm about to preach. So, what was the process? It was an opportunity for me to um, really discern what is the process I've been using really for many years. So how am I experiencing my energy? I'm experiencing it as a little bit frazzled right now. There's a sense of emergency. Well, the truth was, it wasn't an emergency. I mean, it was very much a first world problem. And once I saw that, I could kind of calm down. There was a little bit of, I can't handle this right now. And it's like, oh, well, of course I can. I mean, I'm really good at stuff like that. I'm good in an emergency and I'm good at fixing stuff. I'm the fixer in my house. I'm the repair person. So of course I could. So I very quickly was able to watch what came up and discern that it was not true. That was the first thing. And once I saw it wasn't true, okay, let me just handle this and move on with my day. And I think that is something that we can all do. It's check in when you begin to feel that rise of energy that is a little bit phonetic. Just check in. Okay, what's happening right now? What am I experiencing? What is my mind telling me is going on? And then ask if it's true. And I'm not even talking about universal truth. I'm just talking about facts on the ground, because stress triggers monkey mind. And monkey mind is a fibbing drama queen. It just is. And when you see that that's what's coming up and that it's not true, and that there's usually some drama around stress, you can just go, well, yeah, no, thank you, and move on and direct your energy to something more useful. Now, if it's a chronic condition, if this is something you feel often, wow, sit with it, feel the emotion, look for the thought back of the emotion, and then for the belief back of the thought. What must I be believing in order to think this and to experience this? Because our beliefs shape our lives. And so what a wonderful opportunity stress is to look at our beliefs and to decide, to discern, are they useful? Do they serve me? Is this belief serving me? Because we have a choice. I think we kind of came up in a society that you just believe what you believe. And that's not true. That's not what we teach. And another interesting thing I found was a study that, we've heard a lot of studies saying that when you're stressed, it's very bad for your health, that most diseases arise from chronic stress, from that fight or flight response getting stuck in on. Well, what they discovered with the study, and it was tens of thousands of people, was that what you believe to be true about stress is what counted. So if for you use stress to kind of like starting a lawnmower, just to get you going and to rise up and to have some energy and focus it, and you see it as kind of excitement and a good thing, it will not have a detrimental effect on your body. But if you don't see it that way, if you view it through the lens of something is wrong, and you say in the something is wrong, it will have a detrimental effect on your body, and you will be creating from that. And nobody wants to create from that. So what an incredible opportunity Undress the Stress is. And I'd love to hear from our chat, from our Zoom people, what is it that stresses you out? And if you can discern what belief is beneath that, share that as well. Cheryl's taking questions today, and we always love to hear your comments and your questions. So please chime in on this one. This is a great discussion to be having. I think stress is something we all universally experience, but we all experience it very individually based on our belief system. So I'd like to pass it on to, Gail.
Oh, thank you, Lori. That was an amazing introduction. And I'd like to jump in a little bit more on the physiology of stress and also talk a little bit about the silver lining related to stress. And that's really human connection. So Undress the Stress, that title really motivated me as well. So why this title? I had to think about it. Well, for me, it's because you really have to undress something to know what it is. So when we undress stress, what it reveals to me is that it's not a thing at all. Like Lori said, it is simply a feeling that we create based upon our beliefs. Now, that being said, stress is definitely experience that we all have an opportunity to feel in our lives. And this is true because at every moment we're creating our experiences, and we're also concluding on our perception of each experience. So many of us, myself included, for a long time held the belief that stress is a challenge at best and a hazard most of the time. But then I came to think that what if there's really a silver lining to what we perceive as stress is all bad? And what if the stress response that we feel is really kind of our best ally during difficult moments, kind of a recourse to rely on versus something to vanquish? So where this came from is a few years ago, I saw a TED Talk where there was a health psychologist at Stanford that presented a really compelling reason for me why stress can be a catalyst for good. And I wanted to share this with you because for me, her explanation really altered my perception and how I approach my feelings of stress. So the key she shared with me is that we have to get good at stress. And what stayed with me from getting good at stress from her TED Talk was the idea that our body has a built-in mechanism for resilience, and that mechanism is human connection. Now, we all know that we can't live without human connection. And while it's true, as Lori had talked about, that stress is well known physiologically for activating adrenaline, right? That fight or flight response in our nervous system. It can also kick into gear what I'm going to call our tend and befriend response. So a great example of this is something I do all the time, calling a friend. So how many of you call a friend or friends when you're feeling stressed? Well, that's very naturally done biologically, because from a biological standpoint, this tend or befriend response actually reduces fear and increases our sense of safety and connection. So this often overlooked part of our natural stress response is actually going to prod us to reach out and share the load with someone else. And then as we feel supported, we can open our hearts, we can open our minds to having a new perception, maybe a more generous view of our actual situation. Because again, stress is not a thing in and of itself. It's really how we label what we're experiencing. So scientists have proven that two things actually happen when we are perceiving ourselves to be in a stressful situation. And the first one is what they call the cuddle hormone, or it's oxytocin. And oxytocin is just as much a part of our stress response as adrenaline. So physiologically, when those beliefs create those feelings, and we're feeling stressed, there's actually more than adrenaline being produced. We're actually producing that cuddle hormone or oxytocin. So yeah, it's adrenaline that gets our heart thumping in our chest when we're feeling stressed. But oxytocin is that biological base of that tend or befriend response that I just talked about. And it helps and gives us that resilience in the face of a stressful experience. So they're both there. And that is kind of where getting good at stress comes in. So if we let it, the experience of stress motivates us to seek social support versus going into some type of addictive behavior or maybe into isolation or many other behaviors. And constructively, we can use this social support to experience help, to experience not being alone, to experience connection, and allows us to rise to whatever challenge that we're experiencing. So let's be clear, life is full of challenges, and these challenges are absolutely real facts. But it's our response to challenges is what we're talking about here on Undress the Stress. It's our response. We can't carefully time stressful events. We'd all love to do that, but we can't. But we can reach out to others because we always have a choice of how we react to them. And both asking for support and also offering the same when someone comes to you, we can remove that isolation, that barrier that often accompanies stress. Think about when you see in the movies people that are in a stressful situation, they usually go to bed and they cover themselves up with their sheet or their blanket, right? They isolate. So reaching out, recognizing that social connection, which can be a silver lining to stress, we can remember that we're all connected and that through our interconnection, we can come through the other side together and potentially be better for having gone through the experience. And I wanted to share that with you because anytime you turn on the news or talk to friends, anything that's going on, there's a lot out there that we could all perceive as being very stressful right now. Just remember, it's not just the adrenaline, you've got that oxytocin, and that human connection is a wonderful way to also jump into that self-care or self-compassion that we talked about last week.
Thank you, Gail. There's this huge one mind thing you guys have no idea is taking place right here and right now, because none of us talked about what we're going to speak to today. Over the last week, I'm taking this mindful series, and last week it was about stress. And I was introduced to somebody through a TED Talk. Her name is Kelly McGonigal. This is her book, and this is the person that Gail just referenced in her talk. This is the person that did the TED Talk that she saw. And it's fascinating because when I saw the TED Talk, my mind totally fought that idea that stress actually has a flip side to it. And I was so captivated by this guy. I had never heard of it before. And I was so captivated by it. I rewatched the TED Talk and I felt my mind just saying, no, this cannot be true. And I had to take notes so I could really start to retrain my mind to say, you know what, there's a whole different way to look at stress. And all the data that Lori and Gail mentioned about the research showing that whatever your attitude is towards stress, if stress freaks you out, then your likelihood of dying of stress is like tenfold. And if you have a good attitude for stress, even if you have stress in your life, if you look at it with an open awareness, like what Lori spoke to, something that we, undressing it so you can see what's underneath it, then stress is actually something, it's actually our companion. And so I just love how this all came up. It's so trippy when the mind just comes up through all of us like this. And something I just want to reinforce what Gail said, because this is what Kelly McGonigal says, is that this whole idea of caring and caring for others, that's something that is a total resiliency thing that allows us to deal with stress in a much more effective and life-affirming way. And right now, people are so stressed out. And what we do as ministers and practitioners in our center is we give that care and that love to you guys. And I realize why most of us in this line of work, we're always at such a place of peace during any kind of stuff, because we're always caring about people and loving about people. So whatever that stress hormone is that combats the stress, the oxytocin or whatever it is. We've got so much of that going on because we care so much about people. So for all of us to reach out and care for somebody during stressful times like this is going to pull us into a place of relaxation and ease. And when we're more relaxed about stuff, we can look at that, what was causing the stress, in a calmer way. Because sometimes when we're in stress, we just don't have the presence of mind to unpack it. But when we can take that edge off of the stress, we can say, okay, what is it that's triggering me? What's charging me up? I want to look at this because I'm sure there's some truth underneath this. Because remember, if we know who we are, then we know that there's nothing to be stressed about. So we can identify and discover what stressors live within ourselves that we can start to pull apart and see the truth and live in a calmer way of being. So thank you guys for letting me share like that, to just talk about one mind and how it should.
Hi, I just like to add on to both of those. Those are so fabulous, because when I was, looking at what stress does and how it affects and stuff, one of the things that I loved about it was that to keep a sense of humor. So that's how I typically how I deal with things. If, sometimes I'll start laughing about something that seems just totally horrible or something, but then I look at the flip side of it and I think, how did I get here and what happened? And invariably what I found is that the reason I'll start laughing is because this something that has occurred in my life that is stressful was something that I could have done something about before it happened. Like, for example, one time I was driving a friend home from dinner and we had taken my car and I had a flat tire. And he was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? So we had to call AAA and do all this other stuff. And I just started busting out laughing. He goes, why are you laughing? This is not funny. And I said, well, actually it is, because I have known for a few weeks now I needed new tires, and so who created the stress? Me, and unfortunately I took him along on the journey with me, but still, sometimes it's just a matter of stepping back from something that looks horribly stressful and really looking at the big picture rather than staying in the details. Because the details are what we call monkey mind, when you just get in that place where you're just creating the same thing over and over and over again. And you're just creating more and more stress for yourself. So anyway, we have also, during my speaking to you right now, I just want you to think about sometimes when it just looks so bleak, just laugh. I mean, it seems silly to do so, but if you just sit back and look at it, and I mean, having a flat tire like that, like I'm talking about, was a situation like, a sitcom situation. Here you take somebody to dinner, you're being nice and helping out a friend, and next thing you know, they got a flat tire, and then you're just, and it's just the thing, and I could have prevented it. So maybe you should step back and see, what am I stressing about, and what could I have done, and what actions can I take to reduce that stress, which is what Gail and Dale have both said so beautifully. But keep your sense of humor too. I know there's some situations there's nothing to laugh about. Please don't think that that's what I'm saying. But I'm saying is just change your attitude around it, or look at it from a different point of view. For me, it's from humor. I just think I find things incredibly funny at times. Now, since I've been talking, we've had a great question come in. It says, parenting. Being a mom to my 16-year-old daughter, she has been a powerhouse since birth. I love her. She inspires me. I marvel at her. And we drive each other crazy. Infinite opportunities for understanding, compassion, and deep breathing. Sometimes challenging, sometimes exhausting, ultimately rewarding and life affirming. So that's a great example of, anybody want to speak to that about, how incredibly difficult at times parenting can be and the stress that's associated with it.
I guess I'll take that one, since I don't see anybody unmuting themselves. It's kind of funny. Being a father of two great boys, and actually having some wonderful daughters as well through Elizabeth, has given a lot of opportunities to view parenting styles. And yes, being a parent and dealing with your children is always stressful, because it's our job as parents to protect our children. But I also believe that it's also our job to allow them to learn and to explore. And one of the things that I see with parents of younger children, 7, 5, and 4, and 3 is, well, they've got to eat. They're not eating. It's time to sit down. My kids won't sit down and eat. Well, I don't think I've ever heard of a child starving themselves by not eating. Again, that's a stress as a parent, wanting the best for our children, but allow your children to be who they are. When they're hungry, they will let you know. You don't have to worry and stress about that stuff. I'm also the type of parent that would allow my kids to go off and run. And luckily, only one broken bone between the two boys. And that was actually totally through an accident. Actually, no, it wasn't. He was actually skateboarding when he did that. But allow your children to be who they are. Yes, protect them from the major things, but allow them to get that skin knee or that skin elbow or the bump on the forehead, and love that moment, because that's when they come running back to you, needing that compassion and that love. So here they are trying to be their own individual person, running away from you, exploring the world. But as soon as they get fear or hurt, where do they come? Right back to the loving arms of their parents, whether it be the father or whether it be the mother. So just allow your kids and your children and grandchildren, in fact, to be who they are. Allow them to get their bumps and scrapes and stuff. But that's how we learn. That's how they know what's good and what's bad, or not really bad, but what's safe and what's unsafe. Let's put it that way. So just allow it to be and just enjoy those moments, because you will treasure them for the rest of your life, because I know I have.
Cool. Thanks, William. That's clear. Cheryl, is there any more questions? So, William,
Cheryl,
starting
you're
talking about
muted.
parenting.
There is a
That's
very
okay.
cute something somebody sent me, and it says stressed, spelled backwards, is desserts, works for us.
Great. Awesome.
Very cute.
So I'm going to share a short story about parenting of stress, and then I'll share about everybody's awesome sharing so far today. I remember holding my son. Of course, he's 6, 7 now or something, so I couldn't hold him. But when he was small, I could hold him. And he had sniffles of the flu or something. He wasn't vomiting, but he had really bad runny nose. And we had an awesome pediatrician, even though we hardly ever saw him, but he was around for us to check. He was kind of an extended family member too. And we were trying to get my son this antibiotic, and my son was maybe a year old, and he kept spitting it up. He wouldn't take it. So then I remember taking my son specifically in the car seat back to the pharmacy, taking him inside. Weren't a lot of drive-throughs then. Getting a different flavor like bubble gum. Take it home, spits it up. Next day, go to try and get another one. We're gonna get cherry, spits that up. And after about 36 hours of this, my wife and I at the time said, we're just gonna trust. He hasn't been to a doctor even once since he was born, and he ended up not going to a doctor for years after that. Let's just trust. And we kept in touch with the doctor to make sure fever didn't get crazy, or I don't know if there was even was a fever. And a few days later, it let go. And remember the Beverly Hillbillies? Reminds me of that funny story when Granny had all of these concoctions she would do. And during one show, she had this cure for the common cold. And it's like, oh my God, that banker that was with their show wanted to try and monetize it. And let's take this rest of this thing and make money from curing the common cold. And near the end of the show, she revealed what her cure for the common cold was. You eat her chicken soup and you stay in bed for 4 days. And I thought, oh my God, too hilarious. But so yeah, side. So thank you all for sharing, address the stress. I love, looking at what the issue is. Someone else mentioned we're creating whatever stress is in front of us. How can we realize what's doing to our body, what's going on with our mind, and to get to the point where everything we experience in our lives and our reaction to it, we create it. So whether we're going to be upset about something we see or observe or enjoy, that's still part that was in our consciousness. So if we can take a pause and saying, what's really going on here? I think it was Cheryl said something about getting more educated. So understanding what issues are about and what's going on in life can take the edge off, that you don't get stressed. Can you remember the times when you would use education to understand something more, even this philosophy, and understand it more, so we can feel more empowered? And when we're more empowered, there's less unknown. And when there's less unknown, there's less stress. All the time. When you know what it is, there's nothing that you're uncertain about or you're going to question, because you're really clear what's going to be in front of you. And that's only my 2 cents, but we'll also like to share.
I'd like to just jump in on the parenting thing. When I was in school, I had a really great teacher that it was child development, right, class back a long time ago. And what she said is to take and imagine that when that child is born, that it's just like this little tiny box with, you know, all 6 sides and everything. And it's your job to hold that child, but not so tightly that you don't let them push the boundaries. And so your job is to let them push the boundaries. They're going to push the boundaries. You want them to push the boundaries. They've got to grow and everything, but don't let them push them so far. Keep them where they need to be at that particular age level or anything. And so every time my daughter would start, or my son, either one would start, pushing the boundaries, and it would be stressful to me, I had to step back and think about, why is this stressful for me? Because all of a sudden I'm not holding that little tiny box in my hand anymore. Now this box has grown and gotten bigger, and they're pushing their boundaries. And my job is just to keep them safe while they do it. Let them push to the point that is appropriate at that time. But, and that's what really, except for a few times my daughter getting her off to school, I needed a nap when she left. But you know what I'm saying? It's just like always to allow them to grow, because they're individual little spirits here. And our job is just to get them to that point to where their journey is their journey, not ours. And we're not going to be trailing along behind them the whole way going, oh, here, let me pick you up if you fall down and stuff. Just like William said, you got to let them go, and you've got to let them experience it. Otherwise, you're just not being fair, and you're doing a disservice to your child when you don't allow them to start expanding and growing. So anyway, that was my take on it. I just remember holding that little box in my hands, when she was first born, or my son was first born, and just watching it just expand. And it was just a beautiful experience. Anyone else?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Dale.
Just something I want to insert here, just to kind of take a detour, and is the power of breathing during stress. I know that Lori and Gail they do breathing work as part of their spiritual practice. And for me, especially at points in my life where there's just been a lot of stress that was out of my control, I learned the technique of taking really deep breaths and holding them and letting go. And I'm telling you, if you, it works every time. So if you need a strategy to kind of start to take that stress down so you can do this self-discovery work around it, start with deep breathing, because it just settles your body and gets you to a place where you can start to really look within and see what's going on. And it helps your whole body system anyway. So I just wanted to talk about that, because I know Lori does it, as does Gail, and I'm sure they can talk about the positive benefits they've reaped from that practice.
It's a wonderful practice, and what a great lead in. It's so perfect that you went before I did, because I was going to mention that I saw this video of this little girl, and she was working with her parent, her mom, and she had just smashed her finger in a door. And I've done that. It is so painful. And I think most kids would have just, crumbled in that moment. But her parents had obviously taught her how to breathe. And it was amazing watching her, because she was holding her finger up and looking at it, and she had a tear, but she was doing deep breathing, and she was talking to it, and she was talking herself through. And her mom was asking, are you okay? Yes, I'm okay. are you okay? I'm okay. You know, and she just kept saying that. And then when she was done, she was like, you saw her just take this deep breath and release. And she just looked at her mommy and she said, thank you, mommy. And she gave her a hug. And I thought, oh my goodness, what a gift to give a little. And she was maybe 2, that she had learned to observe and to breathe into what was happening in her life. And she was in control in that moment. And I was so blown away by that. It's very seldom that you see a child that young do that. And she had been taught. And also it speaks to our natural resilience that Gail was talking about, that resilience is hardwired into us. And we only need to engage it. And if a 2-year-old can engage it, then certainly all of us can.
And one thing I'd like to share with everyone is we've talked before as a group several times about the 4 different pillars. So our health, our relationships, our creative expression, our financial abundance. And I can look at each area of my life and quickly and easily define times when, wow, for me, my personal finances, getting my personal finances where I wanted and needed them to be was hard. It was challenging. There were times I wanted to pull my hair out. And yet I would ask myself, and I've learned to ask myself, what's wrong with that? That simple question, what's wrong with hard? What's wrong with challenging? Same thing in my relationships. I have 5 daughters. I have 6 granddaughters. I have lots of extended family. And I can easily say that family relationships can be challenging. They can be hard. I can want to pull my hair out. Yet, what's wrong with that? Again, the most valuable relationships I've ever built have not been easy. They've been hard. They've been challenging. Anything that I've done, if I'm honest with myself and I look back at it, there's been a challenge there. And guess what? With a challenge, oftentimes I'm feeling stressed. And then I step back and say to myself, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with it. It's getting me exactly where I need to be. What I'm feeling is pushing me forward. It's pulling me forward. And a lot of times when we have these feelings that come up, they're coming up because they just want to be released. And if we hold on to them, guess what? They're not going to release. But if we just say, what's wrong with that? And go with the flow and go with the lesson and go with what we're learning, that challenge can turn into what it really was all along, which is a gift. So I'm going to suggest to you, you might try that 4-word question. What's wrong with that? When things aren't feeling exactly as you'd like them to.
I love that, Gail. And something I really love about you, Gail, is you are so inviting for all of us to look at our feelings rather than run away from them. And I think sometimes when people first come into Science of Mind, they think what we teach you is just to feel good 24/7. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. We're all about self-discovery and knowing who we are and just meeting life head on and doing whatever is ours to do to work through some of those issues and be able to, get life to where we are. So I think that you bring up such an important point about that. And I love that, the what's wrong with that. And it's so important for us to embrace every single part of our life and every feeling that comes up, because it's informing us and telling us what we need to know to move forward in life. And I think we do need to really see how resilient we are and be okay with stuff being challenging or having, any kind of confusion or uncertainty about something. The moment we embrace it and say, like what you said, what's wrong with that? Or what is this trying to tell me? We're opening a door to that greater wisdom that's within ourselves that wants to be revealed for us to have the clarity. So thank you, Gail. I love that. I'm going to use that. Thank you.
I think the non-judgment is really, really key. That's a question that invites us to observe. My favorite, and I'm sure I've shared it here before, but my favorite quote is, to everything that has been, I say thank you. And to everything that will be, I say yes. And that's Dag Hammarskjöld from the UN. And I love that quote. The second I read it, I thought, oh, what if I approached my life that way? So that no matter what showed up, I just knew it was there for me. It was there for me. There was something in it for me to see, something in it for me to learn. And I leaned into it rather than run away from it, rather than avoid it. I leaned into how I was feeling. I was willing to look at it and get the most out of it. So even the things that, I may not consciously choose, I can embrace and get what there is for me to receive from everything, to see everything that shows up as a gift, and to be in that place of non-judgment. That is the most peaceful perspective I've ever found for myself. And it's not that things don't come up, they do, but when they do, it's like, okay, let me take a breath and come back to this. Let me come back to this. It may not be my first, I may respond or react, but then I will respond on top of that. So having the reaction, what's wrong with that? I mean, that's a normal thing, to react to that which is in front of us, but then to go from reaction to response by saying, okay, what is there for me to see in this? And I swear I've never asked that question where there hasn't been an answer. It may take a little while to come forward at times, but it's always there. There's always a gift for me in every situation if I'm willing to look at it.
That's wonderful. It's funny. One of the things I love about doing our Sensational Six is a lot of times I go from being the facilitator to the client. And throughout this whole entire class or meeting that we've had today, I've been seeing things. And I'd like to know, give a thumbs up to our people who are watching and on message. Give me a thumbs up. I want to know who enjoys the stress. Here we've been talking about stress as something we should be getting rid of, to undress it. Well, here we are undressing it. Who likes the stress? Because I can tell you this, I do the audio and video in the back of the room on Sundays, and there are times where they start the opening songs, that whole 6 bars of sound, and I've got to have slides up ready to go for the words for you, the congregants. There's been times where I have to shut down everything, go find a program, go find the songs, because the song that I was told was going to be that day is not it. So I've got to shut everything down, go back in, find the song, bring it up, drag it into the program, and be able to hit that spot. And I can tell you what, there's been times where as I hit the go button to show up on the screen, that is when you, the congregants, have started to sing. And let me tell you what, there is nothing more stressful than that. But I can tell you this, there is that, as Gail was saying, that oxytocin and that adrenaline. Let me tell you what, when that happens, man, it's like I hit a grand slam home run on the 7th game of World Series. I mean, I'm just high-fiving. I am just on top of the world. But there's that exhilaration. But let me ask you this, when you enjoy that stress and you're able to get over that hump of stress and not be defeated by it, but actually build from that, do you find that in those moments of calm and tranquility, are you even that much more calm and serene? Are you able to have more introspect and enjoy life even that much fuller, enjoying the details of that rose petal out in your garden as you're walking to your car to go grocery shopping? I'd like to know if that dichotomy, that difference of experience, does it create more enjoyment in your life? And that's what I'd like to know. If anybody'd like to tune in.
I would love to respond to that, William, because that's such a great point. And because I realize with putting myself out there and taking more risks with myself, that that stress is just part of it. And when we were doing our talks in Westlake, And I mean, I was feeling pretty stressed out before I went on and stuff like that. But I said to myself, I remember just saying, you know what, this is part of growth. It's part of expanding yourself to feel that stress of, oh my God, what's going to happen? There's uncertainty, you know, that kind of that organic live moment. But I realized that if I'm going to continue growing and expanding myself and pushing myself farther out there, that stress is part of it. And as we've been saying, we are resilient and we can manage through it, and we can just embrace it and be with it and know that it's just part of this expansion of being more and more of who we are. So I love that you brought that up, William. That's great.
I'd just like to add one thing. One of my friends told me once, Mimi, y'all all know Mimi, but anyway, she used to do a huge talks for Paul Mitchell. She was a hairdresser, and she had to go out on stage in front of people. So she said the very first one, she went on stage and she had the whole talk in her head, and then she was done in 10 minutes, and it was supposed to last an hour. And she was like deer in the headlight. And so Paul Mitchell came out and he helped, you know, go on through it. But then afterwards, she just said, she was so stressed. And he just told her, you know, the feeling of anxiety is the exact same feeling that you feel when you're excited. So what William was saying is that sometimes that stress is exciting, you know, it's just like, boom. So that's what I've been doing when I first started going out and doing platform talk, you know, prayer and stuff like that. I would say, no, I'm not stressed out. I'm just really excited to be out there. And it's just a mindset. It's just an attitude. I'm excited about this. So I started training myself just to feel the excitement of it. And it really does change how you feel about things. And we have a few comments here. And one of them was from Arlene, and she says, this is fascinating and thought-provoking, and thanks. And yes, I do embrace stress. So there we go. And then the other one, it's a cool one. Stress pushes me to accomplish more in my life. My spirit expands. And I think, wow, that's it. Growth. Stress is growth. Anyway, anyone else have something to say about that? Brad?
No, just to ask our panelists if they like to wrap up some sharing. We're coming to the close of our hour. Anybody else want to share some more?
Just one thing else is, you know what? You can't get a diamond without pressure and stress, I guess.
And I think for me, last but not least, love yourself. And this circles back to our topic last week, which was self-compassion. Yes, as we've all said, seek to understand the cause of your feelings of stress. And as you do this, do it with a sense of warmth and gentleness for yourself.
Awesome. Any other comments? Otherwise, we're going to do a few announcements, some other stuff, and a closing prayer. Sound good? Awesome. Great. You all can't see as your wonderful listeners, but we're getting a thumbs up from my team here. So want to remind us, remember, your community, Center for Spiritual Living Palm Desert, creates an awesome experience every day at 10 a.m. And tomorrow is going to be Reverend Charles having a discussion with brand new minister, Reverend Gail Morton, and that'll be awesome and powerful. On Friday, we have Life on Love with Reverend Charles, just kind of getting to know him, chat with him. You can ask him about his life, ask him about philosophy, and just have that kind of conversation. And then Saturday is our every week 10 a.m. meditation. So that's the next 3 days. But even more important than all that, don't forget, www.cslpalmdesert.org is where you have a plethora of amazing information to support you in your life 24 hours a day. So if you want to rewatch this and be in a space with 3 cups of coffee to manage your stress and take more notes on what was shared today, or any of the past experiences of and broadcasts of Sensational 6 or anything else we do, you can go to the YouTube channel and just type in Center for Spiritual Living Palm Desert, and that'll pull up our channel with everything we do at 10 a.m. available for you to look at. If you're not quite familiar how to do it, when you type that in, you'll see our heading, Center for Spiritual Living Palm Desert, all spelled out. Click on that, and then look for the word videos. And when you click on that, that'll list you usually the most current, and then go from there. So what else did I want to mention about some announcements? Great, we got those three things. We're going to go and do a closing prayer, but I want to remind you that if you'd like to share your tithes and offerings for the amazingness that your community provides for you, however you got to us, somewhere on that page is a link to donate with a credit card, PayPal, something along those lines. So if you found us by clicking on the link in an email, if you found us by going to the website, cslpalmdesert.org, and clicked on that link there, right below that is a donate button. So why don't we just give thanks and a prayer and a closing prayer for this amazingness that happened today. Of all of us, as a listener and participant and a panelist, that we've created through the infinite mind of God, that full, clear, powerful, grounded expression of living with, moving through, and managing and releasing the idea of stress. That with but a breath, we can see the clarity of it, the way through it, and the wisdom of it in our lives individually and collectively. For this truth and for this time together, I give grateful, grateful thanks. We just let God be its amazingness in this life, in our life, and in the life of this community. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We let it be so, and so it is. Amen. Blessings to you all. We will see you next week, and maybe we'll also see you tomorrow when you're watching Gail and Reverend Charles. Take care. Bye.